Well, I'm Robert's representative, so I'm going to respond to as best as I can. But first of all, one of the things we need to do is at least, the Bush tax cuts are going to expire. Let's prevent that tax increase from happening before we jump to anything else. And then as far as other tax cuts, the best way to cut taxes is cut the jobs that we don't need. There's a lot of agencies out there, like maybe EPA, that we might not necessarily need, that pass bills or suggest bills that we need to have that raises more taxes, causes more legislations. For example, in Robert's industry, he does construction safety. So the construction industry, when they pass legislations about air quality, they get hit first. But you need to change your trucks. You need to get this, you need to get that, and that's more taxes. That's how we get more businesses out of this state because of all the taxes we're raising on them.
John, I love that question. As a business owner, okay, we've had ups and downs. We've had markets that have gone good. We have had times in our business that have gone bad. What we do every year is we create budgets. We pull out all of our papers and we look in a down market, where do we cut? Well, government needs to be run just like business. We need to spread everything on the table. We've got agencies, for example, Army Corps of Engineers, who was created after World War I for the purpose of building dams, levees, and bridges. The Army Corps still does a little bit of that, but now they're largely a regulatory agency that regulates all of us. It regulates business, it stifles business, it prevents the free market and businesses from prospering. We need to return these agencies back to what they started out to be. Ironically, the EPA and the Army Corps, the federal government, and through a lot of other agencies, are currently hiring people. The nation is experiencing 10% unemployment, yet the government is growing. Okay, that does two things to us. Number one, it costs us all money because we're all paying for it. And number two, the money that they're charging us for that is to regulate us. Okay, so we've got to approach things as a business. I'm one of the only candidates in our race that has a business perspective, and I would encourage you, when you're looking at who to choose to vote for, look for somebody that's got a business background. Look for somebody that knows how to run a successful business. And they can make cuts. They know how to do it. We've done it before, and we can do it in government.
So let me ask you some specific questions, and let's push this a little bit. You get rid of the EPA.
I'm not necessarily saying get rid of it.
There's the political answer, right?
However, I would like to, but we have to be realistic at the same time.
Get rid of the Cal EPA.
Yeah.
We can significantly shrink it, John. No problem. I mean,
you don't have to tell me. I'm asking you what you want.
I mean, tomorrow, it could be 10% smaller, and nobody would even know it.
What about the IRS?
I've got something specific.
We could shrink that too.
Go ahead.
All right, you brought up the IRS, which is exactly what I was going to bring up. We have so many tax laws, tax loopholes. No one really understands how much the federal government is actually costing us. Ask the common person on the street. Do you know how much the federal government takes from you every year? Do you understand all the taxes that you're paying? No. So what we can do is we can repeal the income tax, get rid of all income and payroll-based taxes, abolish the IRS, and institute the fair tax. The fair tax, a single percentage consumption tax. So every time you walk into a store, you pay a single percentage on what you buy. Every single American will then know exactly how much is government costing me, what percentage of what I spend. There will be no special breaks, there will be no special loopholes, and it will save inefficiently. Right now, the estimation is over $600 million a year. $600 million a year, change in just the way we take in revenue. That's what I would do today. Abolish the IRS and institute the fair tax.
I'm down with that.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
Well, I just wanted to get back to your original question. I think it's important for all of us to remember that whether you think so or not, that we are in an ideological war within our country at this time between individual initiative, which is what made this country what it is today, versus the movement towards an entitlement mindset, which has brought down most of the other countries and made us the most competitive country on the planet. And I think the issue of this election, and this was stated by Ronald Reagan, said, the issue of this election is whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the principles of the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan for ourselves. Now, he said that in 1964, but it's as true today as it was then. And in my opinion, there are three things that we really need to try and focus on. One, lower taxes, and the first thing to do is extend the Bush tax cuts. Two, we have to retire the debt, otherwise taxes are going to skyrocket by estimates of 36%. The third thing, and I'm a small businessman myself, is we have got to get government out of the way of business and let business innovate, create, and not have the federal government create jobs, because they don't create jobs. They cannot do anything that they don't first take from somebody else.
Amen. Mr. Harmer, what do you think about this?
Well, John, you asked a great question, which is specifically what do you do to control federal spending? Let me suggest three simple answers. The first is you send to Congress somebody whose first vote is going to be to vote for John Boehner as the Speaker of the House. He's now the House Republican leader. Let me tell you something about him. He has seen the mistakes the party made in the past, and he is determined to govern differently. He has never, ever requested an earmark, period, ever. He leads by example. He is determined to make sure that the people who are going to be elected this year, the 40 or so freshman Republicans, are able to take the principles that got them elected and apply them as a matter of policy. The second thing is we need to be clear about what our objectives are. Vice President Cheney once spoke at a gathering that I attended, my former employer, the Heritage Foundation. And he said, we're running a really conservative budget this year, we're holding it at 4% growth. And I couldn't restrain myself. I said, Mr. Vice President, 4% growth, how about 40% elimination?
Yeah, exactly.
We need to be clear about the fact that federal spending now occurs on something called baseline budgeting. You just assume that whatever you spent last year, add an adjustment for inflation and population growth, and if it's any less than that, that's a cut. No, 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 it's not.
So let's get specific, because you're a lawyer like me, and you're saying a lot of good things, but they're generalities. Where would you cut? Seriously.
Okay, first of all, stop the bleeding. There's a three-pronged test that every bill ought to pass. Does the Constitution authorize it?
Right.
Do the people really need it?
Okay.
Can we afford it?
Back to the question.
Not, but thanks for playing.
Okay, but like entitlements, as we went over before, about 60% of the budget.
Okay, I'll give you a specific.
Okay.
I support Paul Ryan's budget. Paul Ryan is a young Republican congressman from Wisconsin. He's repeatedly been elected from a leftist district, a district that voted for Kerry, it voted for Gore, it voted for Obama. But it votes for him because he takes the time to explain to people why the conservative policies are really in their best interest, even if they self-identify as Democrats. Ryan has proposed a budget that does everything we promise. It solves the entitlement problem. It doesn't raise taxes. It does reach balance. It takes time to do it. It's a very specific proposal. I support it.
Okay, fair enough.
And if I could just speak to that quickly, there's a lot of duplication in the federal government. For example, in terms of drug use among young people, there are 131 agencies spread amongst 12 departments to try and eliminate drug use amongst young people.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that we need to look at federal government and start to overhaul it. A lot of those commissions and agencies were established hundreds of years ago, and there's no sunset clause in those.
They never go away.
Every new law needs to have a sunset clause. It's reevaluated to see if it's still viable or not, and if not, it's off the books.
But are you willing to face the public employee unions and all the lies and distortions that are going to happen when those cuts happen, if you were able to even get them through?
As a candidate, I am willing. You have to face those unions. I mean, the public sector, first of all, I don't think public sector and union are two words that should be going together. Now, unions are a great thing, and they had their place 40, 50 years ago when working conditions were bad, wages were low, and it was not a very favorable labor environment. However, those days don't exist anymore. I'm sure the businessmen on this panel can tell you that they pay their employees quite well and treat them even better, because the better your employees are treated, the better your business is going to do.
You have to pay for talent. You have to
That's
take care of
right.
it.
But now in union negotiations within the private sector, the unions work with management because the company has to remain viable and profitable in the marketplace. However, in the public sector, there's no competition in there. They just go, well, we want more money, so go raise taxes on everybody else. The government is not going to go out of business until we get more conservatives and Republicans in there to start chopping down at it.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Well, since I'm not the candidate and I haven't really thought about what John might actually do on the practical level, I do know that he is a man of integrity. He believes in the Constitution. He believes in states' rights. As a result, I'm sure that he has stated on his website that he does not believe that the government should be involved in, excuse me?
I was saying it's hot.
Oh.
Don't worry about me.
Okay.
Your thing.
Okay. That there are most of the departments in the federal government do not belong in the federal government. They belong at the state level.